Nothing much yet this week in the UN headquarters, just like I predicted last week. After all, August is a traditional vacation time for diplomats here. But just like what we called news dump, it's also a good timing for agencies to release reports or bad news to avoid media scrutiny. And this week, UN dropped a big one. OIOS report on the possible participation of UNRWA staff members in October 7th attack.
The Office of Internal Oversight Services has completed its investigation into 19 area staff members of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, regarding allegations of their involvement in the armed attacks of the 7th of October 2023 in southern Israel. 9 cases. The evidence obtained by OIOS indicated that the UNRWA staff members may have been involved in the armed attacks of the 7th of October 2023. The employment of these individuals will be terminated in the interests of the agency.
If you followed our segment, you'll remember that in January, UNRWA, the Palestinian Refugee Agency, issued a public statement disclosing that the agency had received from Israeli authorities allegations of the involvement of some UNRWA staff members in Gaza in the October 7th attack.
The Secretary General is horrified by this news and asked Mr. Lazzarini to investigate this matter swiftly and to ensure that any UNRWA employee shown to have participated or abetted in what transpired on October 7th or in any other criminal activity be terminated immediately and referred for potential criminal prosecution.
So, after the accusation, UN started 2 parallel investigations. One led by former French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna on the institutional performances. The report was released publicly on April 22nd. And here was what Madame Colonna had to say about the integrity of UNRWA.
Can you just give us an idea how big of the problem is, you think? Do you think it's a systematic problem?
The problem is serious enough for the Secretary General to have initiated this review. So it is an existing issue, absolutely. Now, we've, at the beginning, and including at the beginning of this briefing, stressed the fact that the set of rules, the mechanisms in place, the procedures in place are probably, I said probably, but I'm sure I could say are the most elaborate within the UN system, precisely because it's such a difficult issue to work in such a complex and sensitive environment. Now, what needs to be improved will be improved. And I repeat, I'm confident that implementing these measures will help UNRWA delivering on its mandate.
The other investigation is the one we have this week, OIOS Office of Internal Oversight Service report. Sadly, this report is not for public, so we cannot read the whole report. Since the conclusion is that 9 UNRWA staff members may have engaged in conduct sanctionable under the applicable UNRWA regulations and rules, we were wondering what information OIOS has used to make this decision.
Visits to Israel for discussions with Israeli officials and to receive and review information held by Israeli authorities. Visits to Amman to obtain and review information held by UNRWA relevant to the investigation, including on UNRWA staff and on UNRWA operations. Review of information and communications technology data, including email records and information on UNRWA vehicles. Review of information received from various other sources, including that released through the media and other public sources. And communications with several member states to obtain any additional information relevant to the investigation.
And why may?
Since information used by Israeli officials to support the allegations have remained in Israeli custody, OIOS was not able to independently authenticate most of the information provided to it.
OIOS is not responsible for deciding what action will be taken once the investigation has concluded. And now, the OIOS investigation has been concluded. Any further actions?
Further action on this report, on this investigation, because you said it's been already concluded.
The OIOS investigation has been concluded. There may be further action taken, and we'll need to see how that is done.
Following the report, obviously Israeli ambassador to the UN, Mr. Gilad Erdan, criticized it too little, too late, and suggested that there were more cases. And here is the response from the UN.
He said, and I quote, the investigation ignored that thousands of agency employees involved in Hamas terrorism and the extent of their involvement. Israel has provided the UN with precise details of over 100 UNRWA employees who are members of the terrorist organizations Hamas. We didn't hear that much. We know that there are 19 people who are under investigation. What about the numbers here? Thousands of employees, 100 names.
What I can tell you is that if we are to get precise information, as the ambassador suggested, we will follow up on it. So we are willing to look into any precise information that is provided by Israel or any other authorities. If we do not have that, then there's nothing to follow up on.
Now, the thing is, Hamas was the de facto authority in Gaza. It's impossible for UNRWA to not have connection with Hamas to operate inside Gaza. It's just like what UN did in northwest Syria. And there are over 13,000 staff members of UNRWA in Gaza. 9 out of 13,000? Does that mean UNRWA is what Israeli Knesset called a terrorist group or collaborator with Hamas? Well, you draw the conclusion. And by the way, almost 200 UNRWA staff members were killed since October 7th. Well, at least with all 15 major donors that suspended funding after the accusation, 14 have resumed their fundings. US is the only one left. That tells something. And that's all from me.